What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Facemask Fantasy. It's Judgment Day for a lot of people, a lot of folks. We're either advancing or we're going down with the ship. In all likelihood, this is do or die time for a lot of people, for a lot of teams. Generally speaking, for Week 15, that is the start of the fantasy playoffs. So, a lot of you need a win to get in, or a loss potentially sends you home until next year. Got a lot of engagement last night. Got a lot of questions last night. Got a lot of stuff sorted out. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any other last-minute final thoughts to get through today. We can get through all of that. Any of the most recent updates as it pertains to injuries and availability for today. So we'll get into all of that. We'll start with the most recent injury news, and then, of course, I can take any questions that may still be trickling in to the stream. If it's a rehash of anything we went over yesterday, if you need any more reassurance, we can go through that. Or if you've got any new developments that you want to talk through, we can go through those as well. Let's start with the most recent updates we have. And then, of course, within the next half hour or so, we will start to see inactives rolling in for the 1 o'clock games. So we'll be able to sort through any new confirmations there, although I don't think there are any surprises as of yet. The one, I guess, surprise that is noteworthy is that it looks like Trevor Lawrence is going to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're planning on starting Lawrence. I'm sure he'll go through a rigorous pregame workout to make sure that he's okay. But the most recent news, or the most recent report from Adam Schefter, is that Trevor Lawrence is planning to suit up and give it a go today for Jacksonville against the Cleveland Browns. This is a great development. This is a significant development for Trevor Lawrence. Happy to see that he avoided a serious injury to the point that he is available the very next week after suffering what looked like, could be a multi-week absence. Now he's ready to go for Cleveland. I mentioned it last night. My tune is not too different this morning. I don't feel great about Trevor Lawrence, even though it is looking like he is going to play today. This is a tough matchup on the road against a good defense. He is down Christian Kirk, and he's less than 100% himself. Excuse me. I'm not super enthusiastic about Lawrence today. Even if he is able to play, I would be making other plans. I would be pivoting off of him. If this was any less concerning of a matchup, or if he was at home, maybe I would feel a little bit better. If you want to play Trevor Lawrence over the likes of Desmond Ridder or Joe Flacco or Aiden O'Connell or Bryce Young, okay, fine. But we're looking at a floor game for Trevor Lawrence today. Don't feel super confident about him. You may be down to bare bones options, and therefore you may feel like you don't have a better choice than Trevor Lawrence to pivot to or to turn to. But I would really hope that you have other options, better alternatives, like a Gardner Minshew, Josh Dobbs, even like Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Jake Browning. I would play over him. I would play Russ over Trevor Lawrence. There are a lot of guys that I would think in one quarterback leagues are available on the wire, maybe like a Jake Browning, maybe a Baker Mayfield, maybe even a Gardner Minshew, even though he's got a good matchup today. It's possible he was picked up earlier in the week. I would be looking to pivot off of Trevor Lawrence today. I don't feel super confident about him given the matchup and the situation. Samaje Perine is expected to play week 14, so Javonte is probably going to continue to work in a committee. He's more on like the RB3 roadmap than the RB2 roadmap, even in a good matchup against the Chargers. Going back to the Jaguars, it looks like Travis Etienne is expected to play. You are firing Travis Etienne up. He's more low-end RB1 this week than having a little bit more optimism. That being said, you fire him up. Both of Seattle's running backs, or at least their 1-2 punch, are expected to play today. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are expected to go. How that backfield shakes out is anybody's guess. Walker, obviously, when healthy, is the main guy, and Charbonnet is the change of pace player. Both dealing with injuries. Walker has missed the past 2 weeks. Charbonnet picked up a knee injury against Dallas last Thursday. Reportedly was dealing with some swelling. Sounds like they're both good to go today. But if they're down Geno Smith, this is a tough matchup on the road against San Francisco. How the backfield divvies up any opportunities with both of these guys operating presumably at less than 100% is anybody's guess. I would hope you have other options that you can pivot to, especially as it pertains to Walker. I don't feel super good about either one. Chris Olave will play this week, so you're firing him up. Taysom Hill is not expected to play, so make other plans at tight end. I guess you could pivot to Jawan Johnson if you truly need to. But make other plans at tight end. Taysom Hill not expected to go for New Orleans. Chris Olave is expected to, though, after dealing with the flu for the past couple of games. Again, rehashing the Chiefs' backfield. The report is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire will start and split carries with Jerick McKinnon. I'm taking that with a grain of salt. I need to see how things shake out. I'm not taking that report at face value. What if the Bills get the ball first and move the ball down the field and score? They could put Jerick McKinnon out there for. I don't trust that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the starter. I don't particularly trust Clyde Edwards-Helaire in general today. He remains a desperation play for me. If you need him over somebody like a Kareem Hunt, then okay, fine. Other than that, I would still be looking to make other plans. I just haven't seen enough from Clyde Edwards-Helaire to feel any type of confidence, even though it looks like he will get an increased, expanded role today. Jerick McKinnon would be the guy that I would be leaning on in that backfield if you have the option to select either one, or if you have either one. McKinnon would be the preference for me. This is a game that has potential shootout implications between the Chiefs and the Bills. The Chiefs are weak at wide receiver depth. They don't really have too many reliable guys to lean on there. I got to think McKinnon is a threat as a pass catcher out of the backfield. He has missed the past 2 weeks with injury, but he doesn't have an injury designation today coming into the week. I got to think he's full go. McKinnon would be the guy that I would be expecting you can rely on as far as having some type of consistent role today. I don't trust the same situation for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It would not surprise me in the slightest if Deneric Prince gets more opportunities than Clyde. Maybe Clyde leads the backfield in snaps and touches. I wouldn't necessarily be betting the house on that, though. The good news as it pertains to Isaiah Pacheco is that it sounds like he's going to avoid IR and is expected back sooner than later. This one is semi-significant, but this just feels like a tabloid more than an actual report. According to Ian Rappaport, Austin Eckler is expected to split work with Josh Kelly and Isaiah Spiller. Kind of like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is being listed as the starter. I'll believe it when I see it. I know that, and we talked about this last night. I rehashed this in a good bit of detail last evening as it pertains to Austin Eckler. He has not been the same player this year. He has not been effective as a runner of the football. And he hasn't had his same ceiling as a pass catcher than that he has in years past. You would think that he would be getting a pretty good amount of volume without Mike Williams, without with Quentin Johnson completely failing to develop thus far this season. but it hasn't quite been there. He's got one game with 7 catches, one game with 5, and then he's been at 4 catches or under in every other game this year. Eckler hasn't been himself. That being said, Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller are not pivots that you feel confident about. If you're the Chargers or if you are in desperate need of some type of running back assistance for your team. I don't feel good about Isaiah Spiller. I don't feel good about Joshua Kelly. You have to continue to fire up Austin Eckler unless you've got elite other alternatives. If you did a great job drafting, if you've got Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane and another stud that you can pivot to that isn't Austin Eckler, then okay, you can make other plans. But in all likelihood, you have to go back to the well with Austin Eckler. I'm not exactly scared off by this report. I'm more concerned about I'm concerned about Austin Eckler's production, but I am not concerned about how much Josh Kelly can be a thorn in his side as far as production. Dawson Knox will play week 14 for the Bills. I would still fire up Dalton Kincaid. You probably don't have a better who are you going to pivot to at tight end other than Dalton Kincaid if you don't have another obvious option? Like Dalton Kincaid or Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid or Brevin Jordan or Ty Conklin. I'm going back to the well with Kincaid. The guy proved himself in a big way. He has 5 catches in every game since Dawson Knox went on IR. And yes, now Knox is back, but why pivot off of, why move away from Dalton Kincaid and the production that he has given that offense? I got to think he stays heavily involved even with Knox's return, especially this week. You got to figure that after you go on an IR stint, you've missed the past month like Dawson Knox has. The first game back, you got to think there's some ease in thoughts here. Yeah, I'm not too concerned about Dalton Kincaid's usage. I would fire him up over any other random streaming option you may have until Dawson Knox gives us a reason to reconsider. And then it just came down. Trevor Lawrence will play today. Super impressive turnaround for Trevor Lawrence. That being said, I don't quite feel super confident about him going up against Cleveland without Christian Kirk. So I would be making other plans there. All right, we can get into these questions. As always, I will get to my members first. That is a perk of being a member of the channel. Your questions will jump the line. If you're feeling generous enough to offer a super, that's much appreciated. Not necessary, but that would be a line jumper as well to get your question asked ahead of time. And then I will get to everybody else. So I just ask for some patience. And as always, if you are enjoying the engagement and the dialogue and the conversation, I just ask that you like the stream for algorithm purposes. Appreciate that in advance. I see Crumbly Heads. I see Greg. What's going on, guys? Again, big week for a lot of people. This is do or die time. This is win or go home for a lot of folks. So let's make some right calls today. What do we say? Would I move Amari in for Nico? Nico's in New York. He's not in Baltimore. Greg, you're fine. And last I checked, I don't think the weather in East Rutherford is as bad right now as it is in Baltimore. Real quickly to rehash that again, that's been a topic of conversation this week. Yesterday got a lot of questions about the rain in Baltimore. It's coming down pretty heavy. The last I saw is that there is a lot of rain in Baltimore. The kicker here, the key factor is the wind does not appear to be too bad. The wind is not a factor. That is a larger concern on a play-per-play basis when trying to throw the football. Yes, the rain can make things uncomfortable and frustrating. The wind would be a bigger factor, would be a larger concern if the wins were at a higher pace, at a higher rate than they are. I think you got to fire up your Ravens. You got to fire up your Rams pass catchers like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Um, there is rain in New York, but again, wind doesn't appear to be a factor. You got to fire those guys up. Nico Collins, I still feel, I'm going out on a bit of a limb here because of how the matchup is not ideal for Nico Collins, but we got to fire him up. He could see a third to maybe even more of the first reads with no Tank Dell, no Dalton Schultz. Even in a tough matchup against Sauce Gardner, I'm feeling confident about Nico Collins being able to come through at least as a floor play. Yeah, wind not a factor in Baltimore, wind not a factor in East Rutherford. I think you got to fire up Nico. And Theo, what is a tight end option that you can pivot to? Sorry you dropped Henry, but I mean, I would not have advocated starting Hunter Henry on Thursday night. I just didn't have I didn't have much confidence in that Patriots Steelers game. It was a better game than I thought. Better game than I thought it would be. So, what are you going to do? He catches 2 touchdowns. It's like the randomness of the schedule. So I got to Trevor Lawrence. Again, he's going to play, but I don't feel super confident about him. I would be looking to pivot. I would be looking to make other plans if you have Trevor Lawrence. I don't feel super confidently about him. I don't feel super confidently about him today. Tough matchup on the road, probably operating at less than 100%, and he doesn't have Christian Kirk. And again, as far as the running backs in these bad weather matchups, I would feel even better about the running backs than I do about the pass catchers. So you're fine. You're fine if you have Kyron Williams. You're fine if you have Keaton Mitchell. Gus Edwards is probably a rock solid option as a flex play today, as a plotter in bad weather. I would be firing up the running backs with no concerns. Handing the ball off in the rain is easier than throwing the football in the rain. Not that I'm super concerned, again, because it's not windy. But you fire up the running backs with plenty of confidence, even in bad weather. Wide receivers, maybe a little bit more of a concern, but the running backs you feel better about. You still feel okay about is what I should say. As far as your kicker question, Greg, I mean, Butker's at home in a good spot in a game where plenty of points should be scored with the Bills coming into town. I would if you have Butker, just play Butker. He's at home. He should be fine. He's not a guy that I want to drop for a stream. I'll just play. If I have a top 10, if I feel like I have a top 7 or 8 to 10 option at kicker already, I'm just going to play that guy. I don't want to overthink a kicker spot. What I want to do with kicker spots is, outlaw them and just turn it into a flex spot. But that's a different conversation for another day. If you have Butker, just play Butker. Okay. Back up to the top. Full PPR. Need 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, and 1 flex. You got Pollard, you got Ford, you got Singletary, you got Puka, London, and I think that's Jaden Reed. So your running back is Tony Pollard. I'll take London as your wide receiver because he is at home. London performs better at home, and it's a great matchup against Tampa Bay. They gave up a lot of points to opposing wide receivers. Devin White is out. Jamel Dean is out for their secondary, and Vita Vea is questionable. I haven't seen yet if he is confirmed in or out for this game for Tampa Bay, but he would be a huge loss if he's not able to go. And even if he's operating at less than 100%, if he's in, that, you got to figure that's a small advantage for Atlanta. I would be playing London at home. Um, Singletary is on the road in a good matchup against the Jets. Again, it's raining, but not too concerning there. Again, for the running backs, Jerome Ford is home against Jacksonville. That weather is a little bit better, so that's probably where I would go. I like Puka quite a bit, but if you can pivot off of him today, you may want to consider doing that with the rain being as heavy as it is. I'm not worried about Puka in a vacuum, but if you have other options that like better alternatives to pivot to that are in a little bit better conditions, weather-wise, you maybe want to go with them. I think I would put Ford in your running back spot. I would put London in your wide receiver spot, and I would put Pollard in your flex because he's playing on Sunday night. I always like putting Sunday or Monday night players, the players to play last for my team in the flex. Maximize your flexibility, pun intended, just in case anything random may happen. Ford at running back, London at wide receiver, Pollard at flex. That's where I would go. PPR, pick 2. DK, Higgins, James Cook, London, Garrett Wilson. I'm not playing T. Higgins. I'll get that out right now. I'm not playing T. Higgins. I just don't trust him. It's been a lost season for him. Yeah, maybe he comes through at home. He could. It's just we've got so little to go off of and work with T. Higgins this year. I have no confidence in him whatsoever. I really don't want to play him. I would go James Cook. Give me the Bills' best running back in a game where a lot of points can and probably should be scored. Metcalf is potentially operating without Geno Smith. The matchup is beatable against San Francisco. But if he's without Geno Smith, you feel a little less confident in him. Again, I like Drake London today at home. I only like Drake London in his home games. And if you look at his home game performances outside of the week 1 goose egg against Carolina, which I think was more of a scheme issue than anything else, not necessarily a performance issue, Drake London has delivered. He has come through in his home games this year, and it's a good matchup against Tampa Bay. Garrett Wilson, I don't know. I guess he gets a little, like, does he get a little bit of a boost going from Tim Boyle to Zach Wilson? Maybe. It's not a bad spot for him. Houston is a beatable matchup, but it is in the rain. And with Zach Wilson back in there, is that better than Tim Boyle? You could go either way on that. Neither are very good options, but I guess Wilson has a chance to come through. Metcalf is the best player of the wide receivers. London, I would say, is in the best situation. No elements to worry about. He's playing in a dome. He's at home where he has delivered. At home this year for London. 5 catches for 91 yards week 12. He didn't play week 9. But week 6 against Washington, 9 for 125. At home against Houston, week 5, 6 catches for 78 yards. Week 2 against Green Bay, 6 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown. You can't rely on London to score. So I would say he's a floor play, and Metcalf would be an aggressive ceiling play. I would say Metcalf has the higher ceiling, lower floor. London has a higher floor, should be able to come through with a decent performance today, but maybe is not necessarily a ceiling play because the Falcons struggled to, he's only got 2 touchdowns on the season. They struggled to throw the ball for scores. They get in the end zone by running the ball and running around with Bijan and Ritter and I guess Algier. I would say London is your floor play, and if you need to be aggressive, I would say Metcalf is your ceiling play. And James Cook is a guy that I would have in definitively. DK or Reed, this is where I got to say Metcalf. Go with the talent. I know that, it's less than ideal of a situation for Metcalf. I know, and Christian Watson is out, so Jaden Reed should see increased opportunities in a good matchup. I don't think I can bring myself to play Jaden Reed over DK Metcalf. He might be more deserving of a start given the situation, given the matchups. But I don't think there's a world where I can sit DK Metcalf for Jaden Reed. Now, you'll have all information necessary to you whether Geno Smith will play because Jaden Reed is not playing until Monday night. So you'll know the situation with these two players. If you are scared off by Drew Lock in the event that Geno Smith can't play, then you can go to Jaden Reed. I just don't know that I would be able to pull the trigger on that myself. I would probably leave DK in my lineup, hope for the best. Backup quarterbacks tend to key on their top targets, their top options. So Drew Lock could target Metcalf 15 times in the event that he has to play. We might not be able to expect a ceiling game from DK Metcalf, but it's DK Metcalf. I don't think I can take him out of my lineup for Jaden Reed, even though Jaden Reed's circumstances this week are probably better than Metcalf's. So if you want to wait and see how you feel, you have that luxury, because if Geno Smith is active, I think you got to play Metcalf. If Geno Smith is out and the team turns to Drew Lock, then it's kind of your gut call. It's up to you. Do you want to play Metcalf with a backup quarterback, or do you want to play Jaden Reed, who's got an increased opportunity but is not as proven as a player like DK Metcalf? And as far as Henry or Cook, Tennessee is on the road against Miami on Monday Night Football. I don't love that spot for him, but it is Derrick Henry. Cook is on the road against Kansas City, and I'm not as scared off about that matchup. Miami's been pretty stingy against opposing running backs this year. Kansas City is a little bit more middle of the pack. I think I would go James Cook. In full PPR, I think I would go James Cook. His past two games, Cook has 33 total carries, 17 and 16 each the past 2 weeks. So he's getting more involved since the Bills fired Ken Dorsey. They're giving James Cook more work. I would go with Cook. I would say Henry is more of an RB2 this week in a tough matchup against Miami. And if Miami gets out in front, opens the floodgates early, we could be seeing more Tajay Spears in that game. I'll say Cook. Brevin Jordan or Jawan Johnson. So Jordan is up in New York, where there is rain. Wind doesn't appear to be bad, but there is a decent amount of rain. Juwan is in the dome against Carolina. Pretty good matchup. Juwan gets an increased opportunity with Taysom Hill out, and Derek Carr has been cleared to play. Jordan has a full opportunity ahead of him with Dalton Schultz out. He gets to catch passes from CJ Stroud. On top of that, for Brevin Jordan, Tank Dell is also done for the season for Houston. So somebody else is going to have to step up outside of Nico Collins in this passing game. I think I would go Jordan. Even in the elements, even in the bad weather, the wind is not expected to be a major issue in East Rutherford. That would be a larger concern for me than the rain. Yes, it's less than ideal conditions. But it's not a terrible matchup by the numbers for Brevin Jordan. He gets CJ Stroud to throw on the football instead of Derek Carr. I would go Brevin Jordan. Because not only is Brevin Jordan increased opportunity without Dalton Schultz, but Tank Dell being out as well is a huge factor here for me. Taysom Hill is out for Juwan Johnson, so it's kind of like a tit for tat between Johnson and Brevin Jordan. Both of the regular starters are out, but there's that added element that Tank Dell is also out for Houston, and for New Orleans, Chris Olave is in. Plus, Stroud is just better than Derek Carr, so I'll take Brevin Jordan. What's going on, Fortune? Good to see you, man. Clyde or Brees? I think you gotta go. You gotta go Brees. I don't trust Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't trust these reports. I don't know if you've caught anything, Fortune, from the past couple of nights. I've talked a decent amount about this Chiefs backfield, but essentially, I don't trust any of these reports that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the starter. Like, good luck some of these coaches and their backfields, like Andy Reid, Bill Belichick. There are others who they make these they make these statements about a running back that's going to be the starter. I'll take that with a grain of salt. It's like, thanks, coach. I don't trust a word coming out of your mouth. He might be telling the truth. It's also possible, I don't know how likely this is, but I'm not ruling it out, that Deneric Prince just out snaps and out touches Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That wouldn't surprise me either. The only guy I have any confidence in doing anything is Jerick McKinnon in this offense, in this backfield. Both of these guys appear to be short-term options. It sounds like Isaiah Pacheco is going to be back sooner than later. He's going to avoid an IR stint, which is great news for Pacheco. But for one game, if I was going to fire on one of these Chiefs running backs, it would be McKinnon. If I get burned on this, then so be it. I just don't trust. I don't trust this Chiefs backfield right now. It feels like it's a ragtag crew of guys. No disrespect to McKinnon, who was on absolute fire last year, but like it's a musical chairs collection of options that the Chiefs will deploy depending on how the game is going. They'll make these decisions real time as the game is unfolding. Oh, we're trailing by 10 points. We need to get McKinnon in there more often. Oh, we've got a lead. Yeah, maybe we mix Clyde in a little bit more. Maybe we see if Deneric Prince can handle a couple of snaps and touches. How the hell should I know? Anybody who is definitively trying to make any statements about the Chiefs' backfield and how they think is going to play out is they're selling you a bridge in Nebraska. Like, there's no reason to believe that we can comfortably predict how this is going to shake out in any way, shape, or form. I would go back to the well with Breece Hall. I know that it doesn't feel comfortable right now. He's been on the injury report. He's banged up. The Jets, as a team, specifically as an offense, are spiraling out. The vibes are not great, but I'm betting on the talent here. I'm betting on the talent here. If Breece Hall is playing, I need to have Breece Hall in my lineup. Unless I have Christian McCaffrey and I drafted Alvin Kamara at a discount because of the 3-game suspension to start the season, and I got one of the Dolphins running backs late, either Mostert or Achane. Unless I have those 3 dudes or 3 options like that, I got to play somebody like Breece Hall. For me personally, I got to play somebody like Breece Hall. I don't trust this Chiefs backfield and trying to make any predictions about how it's going to shake out. I really don't. You might be getting a floor game from Breece, but at least I know that if he's in, I can only assume if he's active, if Breece Hall's active, I can only assume he is the main guy in the backfield. I can only assume. I don't trust this Chiefs backfield. I don't trust anything that comes out of Andy Reid's mouth as it pertains to what the backfield might look like without their starter. If there's one guy I would feel like I want to bank on in this game, it's Jerick McKinnon. And I don't know how confident I feel about that either. Both are in the RB3 category with, RB4 downside because they're cutting into each other's workloads. Okay, back to the top. Full PPR, you need Stroud or Fields. I would probably go, Stroud is obviously the much better quarterback. But I would probably go Fields. There's no weather concerns. Well, it might be cold in Chicago. This is a home game for the Bears, right? Pretty sure this is a home game for the Bears. It is. So it is going to be played outside. There's rain in New York. There's rain in Baltimore. There's no rain in Chicago. It's just cold. It's about 35 degrees right now. Good old Chicago in the wintertime. Now, there are 12-mile-per-hour winds, so that is a little concerning, especially with somebody like Fields, who has regressed as a quarterback. The smallest inconvenience is a concern when it comes to somebody like Justin Fields right now. Because of his upside as a runner, not that Stroud can't run as well, but he is in a slightly tougher matchup against the Jets, and the Lions are much more giving defense to opposing quarterbacks, especially over the past month. I would give the slight nod to Fields. Over Stroud. Fields is at home. No rain to worry about. A little bit of wind, but if they draw up some design runs for him, then the wind's not going to matter. Whereas Stroud is dealing with some rain and a tougher defense to throw on in the Jets. I'll give the slight nod to Fields. And one running back between Ford, Singletary, or Clyde. I would go Ford here. Ford is a little bit more of a, he has taken the receiving role. He's not a bell cow. Kareem Hunt is still getting involved enough where Jerome Ford is not a bell cow. However, Jerome Ford over the past month has taken the receiving duties away from Kareem Hunt. I think he's got more routes run and he's got more targets the past few weeks than Kareem Hunt does. At home against Jacksonville, this is a beatable matchup on the ground. I'll take Ford. Singletary's got a good matchup too by the numbers. The Jets are actually beatable on the ground. But he came back to earth last week. Dameon Pierce is kind of getting re-involved in the offense. He was the one who scored the touchdown last week. I'll chase Ford. And again, I'm not I'm not feeling Clyde. I'm not feeling Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If it burns me, so be it. Um, I have a hard time vouching for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. All he has done is fallen short of expectations over the course of his career. All he has done is fallen short. So I'll say Fields, slight nod for Fields over Stroud at quarterback. And between guys like Jerome Ford, Devin Singletary, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, give me Jerome Ford at home. Beatable matchup against Jacksonville. I see another question from Crumblyhead, so I'm going to go ahead and jump down. Again, one more time for anybody just jumping in. I do get to my members first. That is a perk of the channel. You get to jump the line as far as questions, but then I will jump back up to the top or where I left off, and I will get to everybody else's questions shortly. Also, we should start getting, and there's the notification. Breece Hall is officially in. He is healthy. He's more on the, mid-ish RB2 roadmap. He's not a slam dunk RB1, but I'm betting on talent here. I got to go with Breece if you have him over guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Okay, Crumply heads. Mixon, Mostert. Oh, okay. So this is what you have in your starting lineup. Mixon, Mostert, Nico, Downs, Everett, Sutton, and is that Noah Brown? What Brown is that? Or is that AJ Brown? I'm not sure. Eckler, Cooper, Lockett. Yeah, I think that looks fine. This is where we're at with Austin Eckler. If you've got viable, legitimate options like a Joe Mixon, who you know is going to get bell cow work, and Raheem Mostert, who even with Devon Achane in the lineup still delivers the goods, still gets it done, has been getting it done each week this year. I'm firing those guys up, and I feel perfectly fine with that. Cooper is active today, but he had to clear concussion protocol. He's dealing with a rib injury. So if you want to start Nico over him, I am okay with that as well. Tyler Lockett, the week-to-week performances and production just quite haven't been there in the same way that they have been in years past. I'm okay with sitting him as well. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good to me, Crumbly Heads. This is where we're at with Austin Eckler, man. Yeah. If you have a viable pivot, you probably want to seriously consider that. Like Eckler versus Clyde, I got to go Eckler. But Eckler versus any other guy who has delivered on a week-to-week basis this year, I'm taking the alternative over Austin Eckler right now. The vibes are shaky, even though it is a good matchup. The Cowboys defense or the Bucks defense. The Cowboys have been a top 3 option all season long. They didn't do well last week against the Seahawks. They got another tough opponent coming in tonight in the Eagles. However, Jalen Hurts has turned the ball over. As excellent as Hurts has been from a fantasy perspective, he has turned the ball over a decent amount. Tampa is on the road against Atlanta, which on paper doesn't look bad, but they are missing key pieces today. I haven't seen anything on Vita Vey. Is he in? But Devin White is out and Jamel Dean is out. Vita Vey is also inactive, according to Adam Schefter. The Bucks are without multiple key pieces on their defense today. No, I would not be considered. You got to fire up Dallas. Even in a matchup against the Eagles, which they have a good offense, you have to fire up Dallas at home. They're going to be fired up to play this game. Remember, they lost against the Eagles a few weeks ago. They've got revenge on their mind. They want to defend home turf. They've played well at home. They didn't have a great game last week against Seattle, but you got to figure they can bounce back in a division showdown. Jalen Hurts has turned the ball over a fair amount this year. Maybe Dallas isn't like the top 1 or 2 option this week, but they're still a top 10 option. Tampa is down multiple key pieces. I would not be firing that defense up today, especially on the road. Vita Vea out. Devin White out. Jamel Dean out. If anything, you got to feel really good about Bijan Robinson and Drake London. I don't know about Kyle Pitts, but you could probably fire him up with a little bit of confidence if you're absolutely desperate with Devin White out for Tampa. The Bucs are missing key pieces on defense. There's no way I'm firing them up on the road. Play the Cowboys. Let's see. Flex 1 in full PPR. Amari Cooper, Romeo Doubs, Noah Brown, or Dallas Goedert. I'm not crazy about Cooper today. Doubs certainly is looking like a good option without Christian Watson. Goddard makes his return after a multi-week absence, but I don't know that I can play him over some of these other guys in his first game back. I might say Doubs. Doubs in a good matchup where he could operate as the team's wide receiver 1 against a Giants defense that is allowing the most points to opposing wide receivers over the past 4 weeks. I might say Doubs. And as far as Flacco's a low-end start. You're hoping for a floor play. You're hoping for probably around 10, 11, 12 points from him. But if that's all you need, then you can fire up Joe Flacco. If you think you only need 10 to 12 points, then you can fire up Flacco. But of those position players, I guess I would lean Doubs. The matchup is spectacular, and Christian Watson is out. And Flacco is a bottom-of-the-barrel option. Sit one between Kamara, Achane, Bijan, or Gibbs. Holy hell, this is a difficult one. You got to play Kamara. You got to play Kamara at home. It's a great matchup against the Carolina Panthers. You have and with Taysom Hill out, that you would figure Kamara mixes in with more rushing opportunities. You got to play Kamara. I think you have to play Bijan given all of the absences that are on the Tampa Bay defense, and Bijan is at home. No Vita Vea, no Devin White. I mean, in theory, Bijan should have a strong day today. The Bucs are down multiple pieces on their defense, and the Falcons are one of those teams where it's night and day for them. It's not, you can say this about any team. They play better at home. Yeah, most teams play better at home. The Falcons, it's worth bringing it up because it's night and day for them. They play better at home, and you can't trust them on the road. They're at home, so this is a game where you can fire them up. Or you can fire up your Falcons with some confidence. I think you got to play Bijan in a great matchup against a banged up Bucs defense. And then if it's full PPR, this is where I would tell you need to decide if you want to play it safe or play aggressively. The aggressive play is Achane. The safer play is Gibbs because Gibbs is a PPR guy. He should be able to get involved against a Bears defense that gives up a lot of specifically receiving production to opposing running backs. So it's a good spot for Gibbs. But of course, Achane has been unstoppable in any game where he gets like 8 to 10 carries or 8 to 10 touches. The dude is a huge play waiting to happen. I'll say Kamara and Bijan have to be in. I'll say Gibbs is your safe play and Achane is your aggressive play. It depends on what you think you need given your matchup. Okay. Um, you need two wide receivers. Well, Hill and Jefferson. That's the end of conversation. You don't, Cup over Hill or Jefferson? No. Lockett? Absolutely not. Ridley? Absolutely not. Addison? Absolutely not. You got to play Hill and Jefferson. Um, and then who are your top two running backs? It's Kamara and Mostert. Yeah, Kamara has been incredible this year. There's no Taysom Hill for New Orleans, so some rushing opportunities should go back to Kamara. Maybe Jamal Williams gets like a little bit more involved, but holy hell, talk about a night and day scenario from last year compared to this year. Last year, Jamal Williams was the bee's knees. This year, he has done the exact opposite. Hasn't done much. So, even with Taysom Hill out, I got to think more opportunities go to Kamara than Jamal Williams. You got to start Kamara in a great matchup against Carolina, and you got to start Mostert. Mostert's an RB1 this year. You have to. Henry is more of an RB2 this week in a tough matchup against Miami. If Miami blows Tennessee out, we're going to see Tajay Spears. We're going to see more Tajay Spears in that game. Henry is fine, but if you've got decent options to pivot to that with more upside, I would go with them. Kamara and Mostert have more upside. You got to go Hill and Jefferson. Those are layups at wide receiver. And I would say you got to go Kamara and Mostert over Derrick Henry. Gus Edwards should be fine as a plotter in bad weather today, but I wouldn't be surprised if Keaton Mitchell has a larger role coming out of the bye week. That is a common trend for teams coming out of their bye week. Rookies get more involved in the game plan. And as far as your tight end, I guess I would go Ferguson. Had a huge week last week against Seattle. Dak is playing out of his mind right now. I would probably go Ferguson. Ingram had a nice game on Monday night against Cincinnati. He scored his first touchdown of the season. But, I mean, how healthy is Trevor Lawrence? I know he's going to play, which is a great sign, great news for Trevor Lawrence. But, I mean, is he going to be limited at all? Is he going to be less effective dealing with this knee injury? You would think Ingram sees more opportunities with Christian Kirk down for the count. I just don't like this spot for Jacksonville today against Cleveland on the road. And the Browns are a brutal matchup for opposing tight ends on the season. The Eagles are a little bit more favorable, and the Eagles don't have any linebackers. Like, their linebackers are getting killed by anybody who's able to break a tackle. Ferguson over Ingram. So Hill and Jefferson, layups. Kamara and Mostert are your two running backs, and I would go Ferguson over Ingram. If there's a flex in there, I guess I would say Derrick Henry. If there's a flex option, I would say Derrick Henry. Because you can at least trust him to get some volume. Plus, he's Derrick freaking Henry. Who do I like more, Stroud, Love, or Fields? Oh, this includes Jordan Love. So I like Fields slightly a little bit more than Stroud this week. It's close, but I like Fields a little bit more. I guess I would take Fields over Love as well. I'm playing for upside. This is a must-win game. This is a must-win matchup for a lot of people. I want to shoot for the stars. I want to play the guy that I think has Konami code upside, and that's Justin Fields. I like him slightly more than Stroud. It's close. It's not a clear-cut decision for me. And Stroud is playing much better as a quarterback than Justin Fields. So if you want to play the guy who looks like a franchise quarterback, even though it's a tough spot against the Jets defense on the road, I can't blame you too much. But I'll take Fields as a runner in a positive matchup. The Lions are giving up a lot of production to opposing quarterbacks. So I feel a little bit better about Fields today. Love is in a great matchup as well. The Giants can be beaten by anybody. But Fields has, I think, more upside as a runner, and that's the well that I want to keep going back to. I would say I would continue to say Fields. I would continue to say Fields. Who do you start between Charbonnet and Walker? Oof. I mean, it's got to be Walker. If both guys are in and both guys are expected to have their normal roles, you got to go with Walker. But I would hope you can find another. Is there anybody on the waiver? Like, is Jerick McKinnon still out there? Like, I don't know who else is out there. It's a tough spot with both guys banged up. I don't feel great about the Seattle backfield this week. Both guys are, presumably less than 100%. Walker has missed a couple of weeks, but he is the starter. If all things equal, Walker is the starter. Charbonnet's the change of pace guy. You have to go Walker if you have to choose between one of these two guys. It has to be Walker. Yeah, it has to be Walker. But I'd be curious to know, like, is there anybody else on the waiver wire that's worth consideration? Chris Godwin, Josh Downs, Romeo Dubs, Elijah Moore. Godwin is so tough to trust right now. The numbers just like have not been there for him. I know he scored a touchdown last week on like an end around. Um, I'll be honest. I think I like all of those names a little bit more than I like Chris Godwin. As an individual talent, there's no question. Godwin is the most proven player here, but I think I would roll the dice on Romeo Dubs instead. He could operate as the team's wide receiver one with Christian Watson out, and it's a great matchup against the Giants. I think I would go Dubs over Godwin. I hate that we're here because I've always been a Chris Godwin fan. I love Chris Godwin. He's such a good player, such a rock solid contributor, but the numbers quite haven't been there in the same vein this year. Baker Mayfield seems to really like throwing the ball to Mike Evans, which is totally fair, but Godwin's been sporadic as far as being able to trust him. Dubs is in a beautiful matchup against the Giants and could operate as the team's wide receiver one without Christian Watson. I think I would go Dubs over Godwin. What's up, Iron? Good to see you, man. Start two: Rashee Rice, Devontae Smith, Brandon Cooks. How do I feel about Jefferson? You have to start him. He was the first overall pick in most drafts this year, unless it was standard scoring. Um, and then I guess McCaffrey was the first overall pick. If you have Justin Jefferson, you have to put him in your lineup. You have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. As far as those other options, I would play the first two. I would play Rice, who is the only trustworthy wide receiver that Kansas City has, and I would play Devontae Smith. Devontae normally gets capped a little bit when Dallas Goedert is healthy and in the lineup, but Devontae is too good to sit in a matchup where the Eagles are likely going to be throwing the ball because I honestly just expect the Cowboys to be operating with a lead tonight. Rice and Devontae Smith. And Justin Jefferson needs to be in lineups everywhere. As far as the defenses, you can't go wrong with any one of those three. And I'm not trying to make this a cop-out answer, but truthfully, pick your favorite. Houston is in a great spot. Yes, they're on the road, but weather could make things tricky for the offenses today. It could work either way, but honestly, the weather could affect a bad Jets offense. The Texans are playing good football, and I don't have any confidence in Zach Wilson. Plus, Breece Hall is banged up. The Jets do have good pieces on offense: Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall. So that could make things a little trickier, but Houston's in a great spot. New Orleans is at home against Carolina. That's been an automatic all year long. That's probably the safest play this week, is probably New Orleans at home against the Saints or against the Panthers. The Panthers are a gold mine for opposing defenses. So at home, the Saints are not very good, but they should be in a great spot today against Carolina. That might be the safest play. And then Miami's in a great spot as well, also at home against a rookie quarterback. And we expect Miami to, let's call a spade a spade, we expect them to thrash the Titans, who are not on the same level of competition as the Miami Dolphins are. Any one of these are fine. Any one of these are perfectly good options to turn to. New Orleans is probably the safest, but I am fine with any three of those options. I'm fine with Houston, I'm fine with New Orleans, and I'm fine with Miami. All three are viable streams today. All three are viable streams today. All right, jumping down to Iron. Again, I get to my members first as a perk of the channel, but then I see my spot in line. So James, BD, Matthew, everybody hang tight. I will get to y'all's questions, but I got to jump down and get to my members first. That is a perk of the channel. Appreciate y'all's patience. Ferguson or Goddard? I would probably go Ferguson. It's Goddard's first game back. He's supposed to be full go. He practiced all this week. It doesn't sound like he's got an injury designation. Week over week, you probably fire up Goddard over somebody like Ferguson, but Ferguson is playing well, had a big game last week. The Eagles struggle on defense recently. Their linebackers have been so bad. Their linebacking core has got to be among the worst in the league. Certainly got to be the worst among any actual contending teams. Ferguson should be just fine in this matchup. Goddard is probably going to be needed and utilized, but it's his first game back, 3-game absence or 4-week absence, whatever it is. I would be operating with a little bit of caution with Dallas Goedert tonight. I feel better about Ferguson. And then as far as Ridley, Walker, Madison, Gus Edwards, I don't feel great about Ridley today. He does have his quarterback, which is great. Like, he does have Trevor Lawrence, so that's good. Maybe he's okay there. But I don't feel particularly strong about it. Denzel Ward will be on Ridley. Lawrence operating at less than 100%. Tough spot on the road against Cleveland. Ridley could come through with increased volume. I just don't know how confident I feel about the Jags today. I've got some pause. Walker is incredibly dicey. Has been on the injury report. Tough matchup. Madison, he should be all right, I guess, on the road against Vegas. There's nothing particularly scary about that matchup. The Raiders can be run on. They're like middle of the pack matchup. And then Gus, I don't mind Gus today. As a plotter in the rain, he should be able to come through, but I wouldn't be surprised if Keaton Mitchell kind of starts to get more usage, get more involved as their home run threat, as their big-time playmaker in that backfield. Oh, Denzel Ward is out. I thought I saw a report earlier in the week that he was back, but I guess not. So, okay, that's a little bit better of a spot for Ridley. If it's full PPR, I'm okay with Ridley, but otherwise, I guess I would probably go with Madison, who at least is, I think, the starter, even though Ty Chandler has been getting more involved since the Cam Akers injury. I guess I would say Ridley if it's full PPR and Madison if it's half PPR. I don't trust I don't trust Walker today. I think it's a tough spot. I think it's a tough spot for him. So yeah, Ridley full PPR, Madison half PPR. Okay. PPR, you need 2 wide receivers, a running back, and a flex. Chase is in, Debo is in. Chase and Debo are your 2 wide receivers. And you need 1 running back and 1 flex. Moss, Montgomery, and Mixon are all incredibly strong plays today. I really like Zach Moss, but obviously your mainstays are guys like Mixon and Montgomery. I gotta say, I really like Moss today. I have a hard time taking Montgomery out of lineups. I would say he's a strong floor play. I think you got to play Mixon because Mixon is the clear-cut bell cow, not just this week, but every week for the Bengals. Moss will be this week for the Colts, but that's usually Jonathan Taylor's job. So give me the regular bell cow and Mixon. I would certainly play him. And then I would say it comes down to what you think you need. I would say Montgomery is a safe play, maybe not a huge ceiling because of Jahmyr Gibbs. Moss is a little bit more boom bust. He's a ceiling upside play if you think you need to swing for the fences, but he may have less down. He might have more downside and a smaller floor, a lower floor than a guy like David Montgomery, who has been doing it regularly this year, week in, week out. So Chase, Debo, they're your layups at wide receiver. I would say Mixon has to be in, and then it depends on what you think you need. Do you think you can play it safe? Montgomery. Do you think you need to swing for the fences? Moss. It's full PPR iron. I guess if without Denzel Ward, Lawrence is in, no Christian Kirk, maybe go Ridley and just hope for the best. I'm not crazy about the Jags today on the road, but I don't know. Maybe Lawrence is just like a superhuman when it comes to healing his body. Because that injury on Monday night looked like a multi-week absence, and here he is playing the very next week on a short week, no less. Trevor Lawrence. Is Trevor Lawrence the new Ben Roethlisberger, where it's like broken knee, I'll play next week? Adam Thielen or Dontavian Wicks. Is there anybody else? Like, oh man. Is there anybody else? Like, is Elijah Moore still on waivers? I guess I would give the slight nod to Thielen, but like the well has dried up pretty significantly in Carolina. I don't feel good about Adam Thielen, but Dontavian Wicks could come through. It's a great matchup. The Giants give up a shitload of points to opposing wide receivers, but I mean, Romeo Doubs is ahead of him. Jaden Reed is ahead of him. It looks like Aaron Jones is back, so you would think that he resumes his role as a pass catching option out of the backfield. Wicks feels like such a huge dart throw. Thielen is a no ceiling, low floor play. Wicks is a dart throw. Is Elijah Moore out there? Is Jalen Hyatt out there? I might even feel better about him as a stream. That's tough. I guess I would say Thielen, but I don't feel good about either one of those guys. Thielen has a low floor, very small ceiling, very little ceiling of any kind. And Wicks is a dart throw. Wicks is a complete dart throw. I would prefer like an Elijah Moore if he's available. Maybe he's not, but somebody like that. Full PPR, London, Gabe Davis, or Breece Hall. I think you got to play London. I like it. London delivers at home. Just go look at his home games, and that'll give you some confidence in London. And on top of that, the Bucs are missing multiple key pieces on defense. Vita Vea out, Devin White out, Jamel Dean out. They are missing starters at every level on their defense, and they already give up a lot of points to opposing wide receivers anyway. It's a great matchup. I think you got to play London. I like Gabe today as a boom bust wide receiver 3. You would think that he gets heavily involved in a potential shootout in Kansas City. Breece, on the other hand, hasn't practiced this week, but he is going to play. The Jets' offense is sputtering and spiraling out, but it's Breece Hall. I think I need to bet on the talent with Breece. I like Gabe today as a streamer, but I would take the volume that I expect Breece to get. If Breece is in, I know he's less than 100%. He hasn't practiced, and the Jets' offense is incredibly difficult to trust, but it's Breece Hall. I think he's too talented to leave out of lineups, even if you're expecting nothing more than a floor game. Breece is your safe play. Gabe is a swing for the fences. If you need to be aggressive, in your matchup, if you feel like you're an underdog and you want to swing for the big play, I guess that's Gabe Davis, but his floor is 0. We've seen that multiple times this year. We've seen Gabe Davis finish with 0. Now, he could finish with 19 or 20 full PPR points if he's able to get into the end zone. And he's got the good quarterback in Josh Allen. You feel better about that. But Gabe is hit or miss. He could go for 20 points. He could go for 0. His floor is 0. We've seen that happen 2 or 3 times this year. So I just want to caution that. London, I think, should be in. I think Breece is your stable, safe play, even though he's a little bit more volatile with the injuries and the bad offense. And Gabe is boom bust. If you need to play aggressive, maybe go Gabe, but just know his floor is 0. Should you move off Myers as a kicker? Is that Jason Myers? I guess I probably would. I don't know that I trust the Seahawks. I mean, the Seahawks offense, if they're able to move the ball and get into scoring position, then you probably feel good about Myers getting some opportunities, kicking field goals. But this is not a good spot. This is a tough matchup. I mean, McPherson could be fine at home. Santos, I don't know about that. Dicker could be okay. Dicker or McPherson are fine pivots. What's the weather like in Cincinnati? It's 40 degrees. It's a little cold, but it doesn't look like it's any concerns about any other type of weather elements. 10-mile-per-hour winds, nothing too bad. Dicker is playing in LA, so no weather concerns there. Maybe go Dicker. If you want to pivot, I would maybe go Dicker. Dicker the kicker. But yeah, I'm okay pivoting off of Myers in a less than ideal circumstances on the road against San Francisco. Would I start DeAndre Swift or Zay Flowers in full PPR? So Flowers is dealing with the weather. He's dealing with the rain, less than ideal circumstances, less than ideal conditions. Swift is on the road against Dallas. Not a great spot. And Swift's usage has been kind of sporadic this year. As far as the individual matchups themselves, Dallas is a bottom 5 matchup by the numbers for opposing running backs on the season. The Rams over the past 4 weeks have been an upper, has been a plus matchup, better than usual for opposing wide receivers. They are certainly beatable, is what I'm trying to say. It's a beatable matchup for Zay Flowers at home. I would say Flowers is your floor play. And if you think you need to be aggressive, then I would go Swift. Swift's floor is lower than Flowers, but his ceiling could potentially be higher if the Eagles find a way to get him more involved, which is something that has to be called into question because Swift's usage this year has been a little sporadic. Flowers' floor. Swift is an aggressive play, but his floor is lower than Flowers. I would say Flowers is your safer play, even in the rain. Everett or Likely? Go Likely. Likely has, and again, I know that the rain in Baltimore is a concern, but it's not windy. It's not windy. It should be all right. Um, Obviously, it's less than ideal for the pass catchers. You don't love that they have to deal with the elements, but the bigger factor here is that the wind is not super bad. Yes, there's rain, but there's not a lot of wind. And if the rain clears up, then we're okay. Likely has surpassed the streaming tight end options for the rest of the season. He is on the low end tight end 1 roadmap for the rest of the way. For me, that catapults Likely over Gerald Everett, Brevin Jordan, Ty Conklin, any other random streams. Likely is ahead of those guys. He's going to be on the, if you had to rank tight ends week over week, Isaiah Likely is going to be, the tight end 9, the tight end 10, the tight end 11, like as far as rankings, weekly rankings go each week. I would just go Likely. Alex, I'm sorry, man. I missed that question. Chuba or Odell Beckham? I mean, this is where I would probably just go Chuba. Beckham is like a part-time player at this point. His involvement is completely sporadic and up and down. At least Chuba has become the bona fide clear-cut guy in the Panthers backfield, especially since they made those changes, those coaching changes a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I think Chuba Hubbard got like 25 carries last week. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Miles Sanders was like a healthy scratch. Did Sanders get any work last week? Oh, he did. He got 8 carries. Good for him. 8 carries for 23 yards. Yeah, no. I mean, this is Chuba's backfield. It's not the best matchup against the Saints. They are not as dominant on defense as they used to be. So I think you're okay. It's a great matchup for the Saints defense regardless for fantasy because the Panthers give up a ton of points to opposing defenses because of how bad the offensive line is. But if they run the ball, they should have a little bit of success. I would trust Chuba over Odell Beckham as like a decent floor play this week. So I would go Chuba. Full PPR, you got to sit 2 between Puka, Flowers, Reed, Ridley, Chuba, and Clyde. Clyde as a sit. And then I would play Chuba. I would play Reed. I think I would play Ridley now that Trevor Lawrence is in. I don't feel particularly strong about it. But Lawrence is in. Denzel Ward is out. I thought Denzel Ward was playing. I thought I saw something that he was returning this week, but that was not apparently the case. Denzel Ward is inactive this game, so Calvin Ridley gets a break there. And with Christian Kirk out and Trevor Lawrence in, you would think Ridley can deliver a floor play at least. So I think I would have Chuba in, I would have Ridley in, and I think I would put Jaden Reed in a spectacular matchup against the Giants with no Christian Watson. It's between Puka and Flowers because of the elements. I guess I would give the slight nod to starting Flowers because the matchup is bad by the numbers for Puka. I guess Puka would be the sit for me. I don't feel particularly strong about that suggestion. It's a sit two. It's not. Damn it! It's sit two, not sit one. Reed, Ridley, Chuba, CEH. I'm sitting. Sorry, I'm sitting Clyde. Right, I'm sitting Clyde. I'm not. I'm not. If I'm wrong on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so be it. I'm not. I'm not chasing any type of optimism about Clyde Edwards-Helaire just because of a potential increased role. I'm starting Reed, I'm starting Ridley, I'm starting Chuba, and I think I'm starting Flowers. Yes, both of those wide receivers between Flowers and Puka have to deal with the rain, but Flowers is at home. It's a more beatable matchup. The Ravens are a tough spot, a tough opponent for opposing wide receivers. I feel like I'm playing with some fire, putting Puka on the bench, but given the circumstances and your options, I think that is my suggestion. Excuse me. I think I would sit Puka and Clyde. Chuba's the guy in that backfield. Ridley gets a break with Lawrence being in, Denzel Ward being out, and Christian Kirk being out. Jaden Reed, no Christian Watson in a spectacular matchup by the numbers. And I'll take Flowers slightly over Puka. Both are in, dealing with bad weather. They're dealing with the rain in Baltimore, but Flowers is at home, and it's just a tougher matchup for Puka by the numbers against the Ravens. So that's where I'm going. And you're thinking of dropping Najee to play. You have to drop Najee? Why? What? I would not drop Najee. I would not drop. Let me make this very clear. I want to play Keaton Mitchell, but I don't want to drop Najee Harris. The Patriots are the toughest matchup by the numbers for opposing running backs. You expect running backs to have bad games against the New England Patriots. I don't want to drop Najee. He is valuable running back depth. He might not be a stud RB1, but he is valuable running back depth, which every team needs. I wouldn't drop Najee. Now, that being said, I do want to play Keaton Mitchell today. Is there anybody else that you can drop? I don't want to drop Najee Harris. That doesn't mean that I want to start him, but I still want him for depth purposes. Yes, I want to play Keaton Mitchell, but no, I don't want to drop Najee Harris. But I do think Mitchell is a home run play this week with considerable confidence. I think there's some real promise with Keaton Mitchell. You can fire him up with a decent amount of confidence. I think he's going to get more involved. This is a common trend. Again, rookies get more involved after a team's bye week. They become more involved and a part of the game plan. Mitchell's usage and snap share was already going up each week the past 4 weeks prior to the bye week. I wouldn't be surprised if they really try to unleash him today. Yes, I want to play Keaton Mitchell, but there's got to be somebody else you can drop instead of Najee Harris. Breece Hall or Dameon Pierce in full PPR. Breece. I just don't trust Dameon Pierce. I know Pierce scored last week. He got back into the mix. He got involved in the offense. And it's a good matchup by the numbers against the Jets. The Jets are a good defense, but they give up production to opposing running backs. I mean, even in his involvement last week, Pierce had 15 carries and he turned it into 41 yards, 2.7 yards a carry. Like, Dameon Pierce is, I know that Breece Hall has not practiced this week. He's operating at less than 100%, and he's in the worst offense. But Breece Hall is just a better player, man. He's just more talented. He's just better. And maybe I'm a sucker for just like a better player, even in a less than ideal situation, but I want to take Breece Hall at 75% over Dameon Pierce at 100%. Like, the pendulum could swing back to Devin Singletary this week. Who knows? Pierce is just not that reliable. He's not that good. Breece Hall is good. Breece Hall is very talented. I know, again, Pierce is in the better offense. Houston is a better offense than the New York Jets. There's no doubt about it. There's no question about it. but I want to bet on the talent here. In this situation between these two guys, between Breece Hall and Dameon Pierce, even at less than 100%, I want to bet on the talent. I want to bet on the talent. I'll take Breece. I'll take Breece. Oh, you switch. Okay, you have Mitchell on your. I mean, if there's another way to get Keaton Mitchell into your lineup, I am all for it. But I don't want to drop Najee Harris. He's too. Even like less than stellar running backs are good depth at the end of the day. I don't want to drop. I don't want to drop Najee. But I like Keaton Mitchell for the rest of the season, 100%. You want to get him into your lineup moving forward if you are able to make the playoffs. All right. We're coming up on the bottom of the hour, and I am at the end of the chat. If I didn't get to anything, let me know, or if there are any last-minute thoughts, I can take them. If you miss me here at the end, you can catch me in Discord, second link in the description of this live stream, and all of the videos and streams on my channel. If you've got any last-minute thoughts, you can crowdsource for ideas over there. But that will take us to the bottom of the hour with about 30 minutes, about 33, 34 minutes to go before kickoff, before the main slate. I think everybody is as good as they can be for their lineups in this do or die, win or go home for most people week. Let's clinch these playoff berths. I will be live again 6 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday to go over waiver wire stuff and general AMA for the first week of the fantasy playoffs for most teams, most leagues. Some of you may have already started the playoffs. Some of you maybe don't start the playoffs until week 16, whatever the case may be. We can sort through your situation next week, whatever that may be. But for today, it's most leagues, it's win or go home in a lot of situations, clinching playoff spots. It's happening for a lot of teams today. Hopefully it happens for y'all. Hopefully I see you guys next week to sort through your playoff matchups after you guys clinch these wins. But that will do it for me for the rest of this afternoon. Best of luck today to everybody. Hopefully I steered you in the right direction, or at least gave you some decent things to think about for your starting lineups. Let's get these wins. Let's clinch these berths. I'm rooting for all y'all. Let's make the playoffs, and let's revisit our situations in the postseason next week after we clinch these berths. Best of luck, everybody. Thank you guys for coming in and hanging out today. I'll see you on the other side. Let's get these playoff wins and playoff berths. Thanks, everybody.